We don't have a charging document yet, but the Department of Homeland Security confirming to MS Now this morning, and this is the quote, Jonathan, Don Lemon is being charged with 18 U.S.C. conspiracy to deprive rights and 18 U.S.C. 248 violation of the FACE Act, interfering by force with someone's First Amendment rights. So we were just discussing before the break that the FACE Act is a federal law that prohibits blocking access to reproductive health clinics. But as a condition of its passage, one of the compromises that was reached was that it would also cover people who violently interfere with the right to religious worship. And that is how this administration is now prosecuting Don Lemon and others, accusing him of interfering by force with the right to religious worship in violation of somebody else's First Amendment rights. The first statute that was mentioned, though, 18 U.S.C. 241, the conspiracy to deprive rights, that's a statute that was enacted in the wake of the end of slavery. It's part of the Ku Klux Klan Act. And what it penalizes, it's basically a criminal interference with somebody's civil rights. Again, used historically when there has been a violent interference with the civil rights of groups that we traditionally think of as disfavored in America. For example, people exercising their right to vote. Right. Those sorts of situations, not necessarily in situations like this. And the big question I have legally, Jonathan, in terms of the sufficiency of these charges is what force is Don Lemon himself alleged to have used in this incident? Again, Don Lemon insisting during the incident that he was there solely to cover it. And he certainly did go inside the church with these protesters. But I don't see any allegation that Don Lemon or his producer or anyone associated with their operation is themselves using force.
We as in what happened in Minneapolis, we have the opportunity to see the video ourselves, which I'm going to have you go to Mark, Molly, and Michelle in just a moment. But producing out loud here with Alex, do we have the video that we can listen to and see Don Lemon entering the church? Okay. Show what we have, and then let's look for the beginning of the entire incident that now has Don Lemon apparently in jail. He claims he was covering this as a journalist, which he does, and he has a platform in which he has been covering stories for weeks and months to add to that. But play for us, if you can, what we have available to us now of this incident playing out in church, and let's look for the part where he enters. Roll it.
About this? I don't necessarily agree with everything that's going on in the Twin Cities right now, but I don't think it's good to fight fire with fire. I think it's good to speak up. I think it's good to protest, but I think it's better to do it in a peaceful way.
You don't think this is peaceful?
It's trespassing. How would you feel if I went into your house and I started yelling?
I don't think these people would go inside of anybody's house.
This is a house of God. In a house, people don't yell at each other.
There's a lot of yelling in my house growing up. We still loved each other.
It doesn't necessarily mean yelling is the answer, right?
No, but I think it's the way you work things out is that you talk to each other, you disagree. I think maybe if the pastor would try to calm things down and say, let's all talk.
I think that it's good to talk. I think protesting on the streets is fine, but I think there's a difference between that and then going into someone's property and then yelling.
Would you be okay with your pastor talking to them?
Yeah, I think conversations will be great. I think we need more communication. I don't necessarily agree with what's going on with the ICE raids and stuff, but I also don't think fire with fire is the answer.
That's some of Don Lemon and his video. It was January 18th. So that's after the Renee Good shooting. That's before Alex Preddy, but there were certainly protests
very
high, as you could see. Protests there. It is, it's a, some might say advocacy journalism, perhaps, but it's journalism. He's asking questions. He's not part of the protest. He's covering it. He's got his camera. He's got his microphone. He's has been off of CNN for a couple of years, but he has an independent business. He has been acting as a journalist on a number of stories, and it's not unheard of by any means for journalists to follow protests or disturbances, including the January 6th Capitol riots. There were some journalists who, of course, were already inside covering the proceedings that day, but others were outside in the crowd covering that and ended up inside as well. So